last time I had arrived just before the Prophet ﷺ married Khadija, or we start talking about Khadija radiallahu anha. But prior to that, I do want to point out an incident that occurred during his life ﷺ at an early age, when Abu Talib took him on the journeys for business, when he was teaching him how to buy and sell and be a merchant and be a businessman. On one of those missions, or on one of those journeys, they would come by a priest by the name of Bahira, and a Rahib Bahira. There's a lot of difference of opinion among scholars of what actually happened that day. There's a lot of exaggeration of things that went on. And when you go through all the different narrations of the actual incident, you come by a few narrations that are much more simple and make much more sense. And the gist of what happened, I'm just saying this because you may have read this in a book and you may be wondering why this didn't come up throughout the years of his childhood, alayhi salatu wasalam. And what really ended up happening is that this man, who on their way there, he lives on the way, so they stop there to get some water and some food. And this man, this priest, saw the Prophet ﷺ, and he just told Abu Talib that your son here, or who is this? And he told him, this is my nephew. And does he have a father? No, his father passed away. So he asked took some information about the Prophet ﷺ. He told him, Wallahi, inna ibnaka hadha sayakunu lahu sha'n. This son of yours one day will mount to something. And he's going. There's a story behind this young individual. And it's kind of interesting that the Prophet ﷺ was someone who, even at a young age, you could see that there was something special about him, alayhi salatu wasalam. The level of maturity he possessed, and just his character, alayhi salatu wasalam, just naturally as a child, was something that was noticeable. So I talked about, you can see here all the different preparations, and I like to use that term, preparations. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala prepared the Prophet ﷺ for a number of events in his life. He had to go through a number of deaths early on in his life. He lost his dad, his mother, and then later on his grandfather. He had to move from one house to the other. He had to learn to be very flexible, alayhi salatu wasalam, and accept change that sometimes occurs at times where you're not necessarily hoping for it, or it's very difficult to accept. Alayhi salatu wasalam lived in the countryside for a certain period of time, which contributed to his physical health and to the strength of his language. He got to see his mother. His mother was an extraordinary woman, someone who was very loyal and had a great set of ethics, and that affected him, alayhi salatu wasalam, as he moved on in life. He had to work from an early age. He had to work as a shepherd, he had to take care of animals for a number of years. Then he had to work as a merchant, alayhi salatu wasalam, and learn how to deal with people, which is a very big, important skill that we all need really in our lives. He participated in a war, the war of sins, Harb al-Fujar, where one of the tribes tried to overthrow Quraysh and take Mecca back, but they failed. And the Prophet ﷺ learned to actually defend Mecca with his family, and there was a lot of experience that he gained from that. And he also participated in the treaty of charity, or Hilf al-Fudul, where the nobles of Mecca decided that they would not let anyone go hungry, and that any person who was struggling financially would need to be attached to a larger family that would help him or help them make ends meet. So alayhi salatu wasalam, going through all these experiences, he had a unique set of skills and a unique set of experiences, obviously, in his life. You can move forward to the one after. As he's working with Abu Talib, he picks up a reputation, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, of being someone extremely honest, very hardworking, an amazing work ethic, alayhi salatu wasalam. There's a lady in Mecca who her husband had passed away recently, and she was someone who owned her own business and had her own wealth. You see, the noble families of Mecca, of Quraysh, especially we're talking about the families that come from Qusay ibn Kilab, which is the family of Quraysh itself. These families, amongst them were women who actually who were treated differently than a lot of the stories that I told you previously. And Khadija bint Khuwaylid radiallahu anha was not an exception of the rule within the family. Her sister actually was also a lady who owned her own business, and she had her own place in Suq Iqad, where she would sit and people would come to. So the examples are actually quite widespread amongst these families. But Khadija radiallahu anha had a very specific reputation. She was called a Tahira, the pure one. This is prior to Islam. And she had been married twice so far in her life. She had been married twice, and both her husbands had passed away. The last husband was a man called Hind ibn Nabash. And this is a man who she had 2 children from, both Hala, actually 3 children, Al-Harith and Hind and Hala, all males. So Khadija was a lady at the time in her late 20s, around 27, 28. And she had children in the house, and she was looking for someone who would take care of her business for her. And she had heard of the Prophet ﷺ as an emerging businessman working and taking the Rihlat al-Shita wal-Sayf, traveling to Yemen and traveling to Damascus. He never actually made it to Damascus, unfortunately for me. It would be really nice for us, people from Damascus, if he actually made it there. But he never made it that far, in his travels, which we're always upset about, when we talk about it, sallallahu alayhi wasallam. He always just a bit short of actually making it to the city, sallallahu alayhi wasallam. But he built a reputation for himself of being someone of an amazing work ethic. So she was looking for someone to take on her business, so that she was directed towards Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. She took notice of him. So and you can see how unique Khadija as a person is. So Khadija wants to give him her business, but Khadija is not naive. She's not going to call someone she doesn't know and give him all her money, and then go and invest her money in someone she doesn't know. So she actually sends the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam on 2 to 3 trials. She actually sends him and sends someone with him to observe him and then come and report back to her, radiallahu anha. So this person would tell her how Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam was actually functioning on the road, and what type of a person he is, and how knowledgeable is he of the market, and what type of work ethic does he have. So she sent with him someone called Maysarah, a man from Quraysh. And Maysarah's job was just to accompany the Prophet ﷺ. He took care of the money. She didn't give him all the money. She only gave him a certain amount of her business, and to see how he would manage it, alayhi salatu wasalam. Before I continue the story, let me note something. He worked for a woman, alayhi salatu wasalam. Okay? He worked for a woman. He was employed by a lady. She was his direct employer. She was his only employer, actually. It wasn't like there was a board of people and Khadija was one of them. No. She owned the business, and he was employed by her, alayhi salatu wasalam, and he had no problem with that whatsoever. He didn't feel that harmed his manhood or masculinity in any way or form, working for Khadija radiallahu anha. And he did that. You'll see he's going to do that for a number of years. So he goes on these trips, and Maysarah would come back and talk to Khadija, and Khadija would ask Maysarah about the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And Maysarah would say things. يقول, this is what he said, والله ما رأيت أحدا أعجب منه. I've never seen anyone as peculiar as this man. ما رأيت أحدا يستيقظ قبله ولا ينام قبله ولا ينام بعده. I never saw anyone who would wake up earlier than him or sleep after him, عليه الصلاة والسلام. He is someone who was always the first person to wake up, last person to go to sleep. And he would always finish your business before he actually reached the destination, meaning he would sell all the merchandise and make the money, make the profit, before he even reached the market he was going to. وَوَاللَّهِ مَا كَذِبَ قَطَّ وَلَا خَدَعَ قَطَّ. And I swear to you, he never lied once, and he never deceived anyone once. And this is, of course, a very weird thing, because people who are buying and selling, they're always trying to rip you off. It's just the nature of things. Especially if you go back to where I come from. Oh, if you come to, please come and visit me in Damascus. I'll take you down Suq al-Hamidiyah, and I will stand there and laugh at you and enjoy how they will completely rip you off, and they'll sell you things, and you'll actually walk out thinking you got a bargain, and I'll be able to show you. It's just how things work. It's not a good thing. Obviously, it's not something good, but this is how the market works. Everyone's trying to make. The alayhi salatu wasalam was the type of businessman, the type of merchant who never participated in these things. He is someone who was extremely honest, never lied, never deceived anyone, and he still managed to make a profit and make money and finish his work early. He just had a very unique work ethic, alayhi salatu wasalam. And then Maysarah would add, وَوَاللَّهِ لَقَدْ رَأَيْتُ مِنْهُ عَجَبًا. I have something else I saw from him that was very weird. تقول ما رأيت. What is it? يقول حلفوه يوما فقالوا أتقسم باللات والعزى. Once he was buying and selling to someone who was buying something from him, he asked him, will you swear that this is correct? Swear by the Allat wal Uzza. Allat wal Uzza are 2 idols that existed in Arabia at the time that they worshipped. فقال صلى الله عليه وسلم, he answered this man, ما عبدتهما قط حتى أقسم بهما. I've never worshipped them or believed that they had any effect for me to ever take an oath by them. So Maysarah is telling Khadija. Why is he telling Khadija that specifically? Because that's something that's not that, why would he report that? Why do you think? Exactly, because Khadija is the same. Because Khadija was the same. Khadija did not believe in idols at all. Khadija was also Hanifiyya, a lady. Why? Because, and you'll see why very soon when we talk about Waraqa bin Nawfal. We'll come by very soon. So she was like him. She also didn't believe in idols. So the fact that the Prophet ﷺ was like that meant something, because Maisarah is telling her, by the way, he's like you. He doesn't believe in all this stuff that other people believe in. Yes?
I think it's because whatever his name is.
Yeah.
He's like from the time of Ibrahim and them, and they used to talk about Allah and stuff.
You have it one way or the other. Yeah, with not so many words, you got it right. But so who is Khadija? Khadija, her name is Khadija bint Khuwaylid ibn Asad ibn Abd al-Uzza ibn Qusay ibn Kilab. So she comes from a part of the family of Qusay ibn Kilab that is small. So Qusay ibn Kilab, the one who actually put together Quraysh, and they call him Quraysh al-Asghar, or the one who actually held on to Mecca. He removed all the other tribes and he made sure that it was run by his family, or the families of Fihr. He had a few sons. He had Abd Manaf, he had Abd Shams, he had Abd ad-Dar. And these children ended up having a lot of other children, and they became strong tribes. And all three tribes became very competitive amongst each other of who was going to do what for the Kaaba, who was going to take care of the Hujjaj in what ways. But he also had two other children that were much weaker or didn't have a lot of children. And one of them is Abd al-Uzza. Abd al-Uzza only had one son. At the time, if you didn't have many sons, you didn't end up being able to have strength, and you wouldn't compete on the social and financial fronts that tribes would compete on. So Abd al-Uzza didn't have many children. He only had Asad, and Asad had a few kids, one of them Khuwaylid, who had, of course, Khadija. So Khadija came from a family that wasn't interested in competing. It wasn't interested in all the social status or the financial status, but they were wealthy, they worked, they had a business. So Khadija radiallahu anha came from a family that didn't have alliances problems. So they weren't allied against Bani Hashim or with Bani Hashim. They were kind of neutral somewhere in the middle, which made it easier for her to approach the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now, what happened was, Khadija, as she's hearing all these stories about him alayhi salatu wasalam from Maisarah, she starts telling her friends, I employed this young man, and he does this, and he's like this, and he speaks like this. The Prophet ﷺ, in another hadith that we have, said, كنا نعود يعني من رحلتنا فنجد الطعام قد أعدته لنا أنا وميسرة. Meaning we would come back after a long trip, and Khadija would have food prepared for me and Maisarah to eat. You would talk about the fact that she was very generous and kind to him. But Khadija radiallahu anha took notice of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and she would speak of him a lot to Nafisa, her friend, Nafisa bint Munya. That's her name. So she's telling Nafisa all about Muhammad's this and Muhammad's that and Muhammad's this and Muhammad's that. So Nafisa is sitting there listening. فقالت تزوجيه. You like him so much, you might as well marry him. فقالت أو يقبل. Do you think he would be okay with that? فقالت أسأل لك. I'll ask for you if you want. So Nafisa is going to fix this all up. Jazakallah khair. There's always a lady like that somewhere, right? Fixing everyone up and taking care of these things. So Nafisa would go to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He's around 25, 26. فتقول له يا محمد ما لك لا تتزوج. What's wrong with you? Why don't you get married? فيقول ومن يتزوجني وأنا فقير. Who will marry me and I don't have much money? Again, I need to stop for a moment. Why didn't he have much money alayhi salatu wasalam? He's a businessman. He's been working since he was 8. You would think maybe he, put some money together. He has some wealth somewhere, right? Where is he spending his money? He doesn't have any bad habits. He doesn't gamble, alayhi salatu wasalam. He doesn't drink. Where is he spending his money? You see, this is something you'll figure out very soon as you go through his life, alayhi salatu wasalam. Yes, go ahead. Yes, so he uses most of his wealth, he uses it to help those around him, alayhi salatu wasalam. This is something way before he became the Prophet. When he made wealth, he distributed it. He brought Ali ibn Abi Talib to his home before he was married. He was taking care of Ali, who was just out of loyalty to Abu Talib, who took care of him when he was a kid. He took care of Ali just out of loyalty before he got married. So his wealth he made, he would spend it on others. He never really kept a lot of money around. And to get married, as you know, unfortunately, you need a certain amount of money. Obviously back then not as much as you need today, but you still needed something. And he didn't really own that much, alayhi salatu wasalam. His father didn't leave him a big inheritance or anything. فقالت من يتزوجني وأنا فقير. فقالت خديجة. Why don't you try Khadija? قالت أو تقبل. Why would she be okay with that? So Nafisa smart. فقالت أسأل لك. I have to ask for you. She's not going to say, oh no, she's totally asking about you. No. Why? Because that's how it's done. Because maintaining the integrity of the lady during marriage is extremely important. There's nothing wrong with Khadija initiating this relationship. Khadija initiated this relationship. He didn't do the khutbah, alayhi salatu wasalam. He didn't actually go and ask for her. He was asked for by her, but it was done in a way where her integrity and her honor were maintained and sustained. It wasn't going to be put in the fact that, oh, she's head over heels over you, and he gets to come and... No, that's not how it's going to happen. But it's okay for the lady to initiate this. That's how he got married, alayhi salatu wasalam. If he got married that way, I don't understand why others can't do the same. And if Khadija radiallahu anha, who was called the pure one prior to being a Muslim, aside from the fact she's the first Muslim that we have on record, and she is someone who, he says alayhi salatu wasalam, خَيْرُ نِسَائِهَا مَرْيَمُ بْنَةِ عِمْرَانَ وَخَيْرُ نِسَائِهَا خَدِيجَةُ بِنْتُ خُوَيْلِدٍ. The best of all women that ever lived are Maryam, and the best of all women that ever lived is Khadija. That is the status of Khadija, and yet she's the one who initiated the relationship with the Prophet ﷺ. But she did it respectfully. She held on to her integrity in the process. She didn't seem cheap, sorry for the word. That's not how this came off or came over to the Prophet ﷺ in the way that this was approached. And a very important point here. But there's nothing wrong with that happening. So Nafisa would go and spend a few days, give me a second, spend a few days, and for no reason, because Khadija is already okay with this, and just let the Prophet ﷺ maybe think and worry and wait and be in a bit of a fuss, and then she would come back to him and say, Khadija says, yeah, she's okay with it, she'll take you. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So he would curry and bring Abu Talib, and they would go, and Abu Talib would be there for the nikah of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and they would get married. It's a really important story in Seerah. It really is. It's probably one of the most important. How their relationship actually came to be. The fact that they had a professional relationship prior to getting married, and they kept it professional for the whole time. It wasn't like they had something happening behind closed doors or behind the scenes, and they knew this was going to happen. No, she didn't know if he was interested. He didn't know she was interested. Even both of them were. Because when you deal with the opposite gender, you deal professionally. Whether you're a student and they're a teacher, or the opposite, or your colleagues at work, or your classmates in a classroom, you have to deal with the opposite gender professionally. Professionally means you show respect, and you don't play around, and there's no flirting involved. And this is something that's important. My younger brothers and sisters, you have to understand how this works. You are entitled, and my rant is coming, don't worry, we're going to talk about marriage in a moment. You're entitled to ask for halal, but in the meantime, you're also held accountable. You're required to observe the boundaries of relationships. They worked together for many years, and they were completely professional. And if it wasn't for this Jazakallah khair Nafisa, fixing this up, it wouldn't have happened. She had to set it up for them to actually take the step to get married. Sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Age difference. There's a very common mistake that we think Khadija was 40 when she got married. Correct? How many people have heard that in the past? Okay, good. That is very incorrect. Historically, it's incorrect, and it doesn't work at all. There's 3 to 4 different shuyukh who actually, and ulama who actually took time to break down the timeline of when she was born, and it's impossible for her to be 40 at that age. How old was she? She was late 20s. So she was older than him, alayhi salatu wasalam. She was older than the Prophet, alayhi salatu wasalam, by a couple of years, but she was still in her 20s, maybe early 30s, but she definitely was not 40, because they're going to get married and have 6 children. After 40, that's something unheard of, at least at the time. And radiallahu anha, just based on the timeline when she was born and how old her father was, it's impossible that she was 40 when she got married. She was maybe a few years older. The Prophet ﷺ married a lady a few years older than him. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Again, you feel like in his marriage, he breaks every single stereotype and every norm that we have. All the norms that we're used to. The man has to initiate. Nope, he's not going to. The man marries a lady who's 15 years younger than him. Nope, he's not going to do that either. He's going to be, of course, the one who has more money. Nope, she's going to be way wealthier than he is. For the rest of their lives, by the way. But the question is, who's actually going to spend money on the household? Who's in charge of the financial well-being of the house? He is, alayhi salatu wasalam. Her money is her money. She doesn't have to use any of her money, and she didn't, to actually take care of the household. He would use his own wealth, alayhi salatu wasalam. But then later, when he's asked about her, one of the things he says about Khadija, قالت وواستني بمالها إذ حرمني الناس. And at certain times when I needed wealth, and I didn't have money, and I needed support, she supported me with her wealth. He saw that as something that was extremely generous and amazing that she did, radiallahu anha, for him, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Because he didn't have to. Because Islamically, they don't have to. If they work, they don't. The money that they make is their own. If you've agreed with your wife that the money you put all the money in one place, then she actually is doing something extra for you. She doesn't have to. You're the one. Men, you take care of the household financially. It's your job. It's not their job. It's not theirs. And Khadija, radiallahu anha, her money was hers. The Prophet, even though he didn't have a lot, but he took care of the household. He spent the money on the house. And sometime you'll see later on, he's going to come moments where he needs her support. As he's a prophet, when he becomes a prophet, he'll need support, financial support, and she will offer him. Radiallahu anha. And alayhi salatu wasalam will continue to remind her people that she was generous with me. She gave me her wealth. She didn't have to. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Let's go forward. Yes. So a couple of points up here. And I've talked about this a number of times before. And I warned you last time I talked to you that there was going to be a rant this time, and I told you if you didn't want to come for it, don't come, because I'm going to rant about marriage for a bit. But everyone showed up, so apparently you want to listen to this. I didn't grow up here. I didn't grow up in this country. I grew up elsewhere. When I came here a couple of years ago, and I was introduced to the way high schools function and universities functions, and I went and did halaqat and the MSAs for both university and high schools, and I saw what these young people are up against, I didn't know how to deal with it. I literally started to ask questions that sounded weird to people. How is everyone functioning in this type of society with the ethical norm being as it is? How do people actually hold on to their chastity in this community, in this country? I don't understand how this works. And I feel like it's a big deal that most of our Muslim brothers and sisters, at least those who are here, are actually holding on to this. But a lot of them aren't, and they're struggling with it. And the reason for that is that we know that haram is easy, yet we have not taken steps to make halal easy either. It should be easier, but if it can't be easier, then at least it has to be similarly easy, or we have to actually at least take off some of the obstacles in front of people who want to get married. The way marriage ran in the last maybe 40, 50 years, it's not sustainable. This doesn't work anymore. This idea that they have to be in their late 20s and they have to have a certain amount of money in the $10,000 to $100,000 to actually get married. And all these limitations that come from parents and come from the actual youth, whether male or female, this has to be reconsidered and rethought again. The way things are running right now is not right. I got married, I was 26, and I lived in Syria at the time. I lived in the suburbs of Damascus. It's a very simple place. Everyone wore hijab. Everyone knew everyone. You couldn't make a mistake because everyone would know immediately. It was just a small village of the same last name. The way things function here are very different. What do we expect, really? How can we sit around and watch? How can we turn a blind eye to the difficulties that our youth are having in schools and in universities and act like it doesn't mean anything? And then wonder why our communities aren't doing the right thing, and our youth aren't interested in Islam, and they're not. Obviously, it's obvious why this is the problem. Because we haven't taken the right steps. There are 5 elements of maturity that are needed to get married. You have 5 things you have to have. You have to be mature physically. Unfortunately, that's the first thing to happen. Unfortunately, here's the first thing that happens. You mature physically. And then you have to mature socially. So you have to have your own name. You have to be able to present yourself. You have to know people. You have to have some status in your society. You have to have financial maturity. Then you have to have some money. You have to be able to manage money. You have to have a job. You have to have religious maturity. I mean, you have to know your deen properly, because if you don't practice your deen, you know your deen, no one's going to want to take you as a mate. You have to have psychological maturity. You have to be able to carry the responsibilities of marriage. You have to understand that marriage is a difficult thing to sustain and maintain. It's not easy. It's not easy. At the beginning, it's fun. Enjoy it at the beginning when you're engaged and have fun. But later on, it takes effort from both sides to actually hold on to the marriage. And it's an important part. You're a unit now. You're a family. You're going to have kids. This is something that's worth holding on to, and it's not going to happen naturally. You can't give up in the first fight or the first problem. You have to figure out ways to compromise. We have to have. Another issue is social. I put something there. Oh, maybe it's on the second one. I'll talk about it in a second. Do my younger sisters and brothers here understand the difference between love and lust, or do they not know the difference between the two? Everything you've ever seen on a movie, romantic movie, anything, every single romantic movie you've ever seen, Right? Think in your mind if you've seen romantic movies. Most of you have. Don't lie and act like you haven't. I'm the only one who hasn't. Everyone's watched romantic movies here. Yeah, I'm not the only person here. Everyone has done it. Every single movie you've watched, the moment they use the word love, it's lust. They just don't want to say it. So they say love. They just take the word lust and they put the word love. Take every single romantic movie and every time they say the word love, take it out and put the word lust, and then you have the truth. Then you have the actual truth. Love is something different. Love comes from proper treatment, from taking care of the person in front of you, of being loyal, from being kind, from being patient, from persevering through difficult. That's what love is. Your parents love you because they took care of you for a very, very long time. You love them because they did that for you. It's not the same type of love you'll have with your spouse, but the same basic principles of love apply. What you see on the movie, what you see in movies, you see on TV, that's called lust. That's just chemistry. That's just something that happens. It's literally impossible for two people to fall in love at the first sight. The whole theory is flawed because it goes against the definition of love. Love doesn't happen like that. Love takes time. It takes time to build it. You want to love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you have to learn about Him. You have to speak about Allah and to Allah and to actually build that relationship. You want to love the Prophet, it takes time as well. You need to love your parents and your siblings. It's a matter of time. No, I looked at her from a side and no, you didn't fall in love. You fell in lust. It's fine. It's not a problem. You need lust for marriage to work. Without lust, marriage won't work. But to actually call love lust and lust love, it's a problem. This is not the same thing. They don't function the same way. If someone said, no, I married my husband out of love, I have a problem with that word terminology. Unless you knew this person for a very, very long time prior, then you're probably wrong. This probably wasn't love. This is probably some imagination you had in your mind. Sometimes we imagine people to be a certain way, and we fall in love with the image we've made of them. That's not what love is actually. That's why learning the Prophet ﷺ's story here is very important. All romantic movies, when do they end? When do they end? When's the moment when they end? Someone tell me. Most romantic movies, not all of them. They end at the same basic spot. When? No, when the two people get married. Right? That's how the movie ends. We're standing there, they're getting married. Yeah, Habibi, you want to show me love? Show me how they're functioning 15 years later, and then tell me they're in love. 15 years later, there's a lawsuit and they're divorced and one person's in jail and the kids are between the parents. Why? Because that's not love. Love is not, it doesn't end at marriage, it begins at marriage. That's where you start this. You begin your process of building love at that moment. But no, they end it for you right there. Because it sells. Listen to me. Lust sells. Sex sells. It sells, it makes money. So make movies, and instead of people telling people this is lust, take out lust, put love. And if they buy it, then you can sell a lot of movies this way and become very famous and make money, and you can destroy the mentality of a complete generation of human beings. So they don't know the difference anymore. They don't know the difference between love and lust, and they don't know which one means something, which one is just a chemical reaction, just chemistry happening inside of you. It does change with time, it matures. This is not to say that marriage is boring. It's not. Marriage is a beautiful thing, and if you know how to actually manage yourself, and if you know how to navigate through marriage, it's a beautiful and wonderful thing. Things just change. It's not what you think it is. Move forward to the slide after. All right. In marriage, you have to be comfortable with leadership. If you're not comfortable with leadership, you can't get married. You see, it's just like any other functioning system in the world. Marriage, this union, this family unit, it needs leadership. Leadership does not mean dictatorship. I know we're Arabs and that's how it sounds, but that's not how it is. Please, let's change the terminology here. Dictatorship is a different thing. Leadership is a beautiful thing. Regardless of who's leading the family, most traditionally the men are leaders in their families, but it can be that a lady is a leader and it's fine either way. We have examples in the Seerah of both type of families functioning fine. Leadership means that we don't give up when we disagree. That's what it means. That we're not going to give up on this union and throw our marriage away and throw our family because we don't agree on a specific point. There has to be trust. Okay, we disagreed. You're leading. I'm going to put my trust in you even though I don't agree with you, and move behind you and move with you and support you. If that doesn't happen, marriages fall to pieces. Most marriages fall to pieces because of that. Because we disagree. I'll do one thing, she'll do the other. She won't support me, I won't support her. And then everything comes crashing. It all crashes. You have to be very comfortable with the concept of leadership in order for you to actually enjoy and be able to function within a marriage. Second point. This is a very Islamic point. It's called social adequacy or social compatibility. It's called, if you study books of fiqh, it's called kafa'ah. Kafa'ah, meaning you look for people who come from similar social and ethnic backgrounds. You look for someone who has similar norms, similar traditions as you, in order for marriage to be something you can actually function in. I'll give you an example that's very important in the seerah. We have two people in the seerah who are seen Islamically as some of the best human beings to ever live within Islam on both genders. We have Zaid ibn Haritha, who I'm going to talk about in a few minutes. The Prophet ﷺ will love him to the point that the Sahaba would say, the only reason Abu Bakr is Khalifa is Zayd passed away. Because we would have given him, because he loved him way more than anyone else. And Zainab, bint Jahsh radiallahu anha, al-Qurashiyya. Zainab was from Quraysh. And she's al-Mu'mineen. The Prophet ﷺ would later marry her. And she's one of Ummahat al-Mu'mineen, one of the mothers of believers. You can say nothing negative about this person no matter what. And she's actually one of the best Muslims to ever live. These two people got married and then got divorced because of social adequacy and social compatibility. Zayd was someone from a background of simplicity, a simple background. Wasn't interested in the noble families, wasn't interested in attending any of these meetings. He came from a very simple background. He lived in small houses. He likes to sit on the floor. Zainab came from a different background. She is one of the Sadat Quraysh. She's one of the noble families of Quraysh. She's used to something very different. The expectations of life for both of them were different. Does that mean he was good and she was bad? No. Does it mean the opposite? No. It just means there was no social compatibility here. So they had to go on their separate ways. I believe this story exists in the seerah so that we can learn from it. It had to exist in the seerah of the Prophet ﷺ. It's a lesson for us. When your father, for you as a young man, or for you as a young lady, tells you this person is not someone that's going to, I don't think is the right spouse for you. Listen, what they're looking at this. You're looking at everything else. You look at the way they look on the outside, what they can do for you, how they speak to you, what they studied, but they're looking at social compatibility. Trust your parents when they give you this advice because they know what they're talking about. The father's job is when someone comes and asks for his daughter's hand is to look at this person and judge whether this person will take care of his daughter the way she's been taking care of most of her life, so she's not miserable in her husband's house later. And she's not hating her life because she finds out the expectations of both people, of herself and her husband, are so different that she cannot find happiness. We need to raise our children to understand these concepts at a young age. Kids have to learn the words I'm using and the ideas I'm saying at a young age. There's nothing embarrassing about this. It shouldn't be something you wait until they're 20 or 19 or 18 to talk about. Talk to them about this early. Social compatibility also means that you look for someone from a good family, from a good background, someone who has a similar background to you. Practicing Muslims who are pious and of great caliber. You look for people like that so that your children will have a family at both sides that are extraordinary and good and will teach them the right ethics and the right morals. We're at a point right now in our society, in our community, where this issue has to be addressed directly. I am telling you, as a mother and a father, if you have children, if your kids are at the age of marriage, and you say, what's the age of marriage? To me, once they're over 20 is the age of marriage for them. Yeah, see, most people start knowing you don't like that. But that's how it's supposed to be. I think I could even go a bit earlier, but we're not ready yet. But once they hit the age of 20, you have to start talking about marriage, talking about the concept of marriage, what to look for, what to think about, and start helping them, preparing them so they can get married. The number of Muslim youth that we have in this community that are not married yet, and I have no good reason for it. I don't understand why. They're from very nice families. They're very nice people. They're practicing Muslims, but marriage isn't happening because there are expectations from both the male's family and the female's family that are unreasonable. And there's a lot of expectations from the young Muslims here that are unreasonable as well. If you want a story that you've seen on a romantic movie, I'm sorry. If that's what you're looking for, you want to fall madly in love, before you get married, and that's how you want to do things, it's a big risk that you're taking, and that's usually not how it works, and it's usually not real. It really is not real. If there's anything to learn from the human experience, is that All the Hollywood marriages that are, the stories, how do they end? They end and they're disgusting now, how this ends. And on the other hand, you look at other marriages, much more simple. The way people came together was simple, but they're married for 50, 60, 70 years and they have kids and they're happy and they're functioning. Because it's not about that. What keeps a marriage together are different things. It's a certain level of maturity that both spouses have and the proper expectations of life that they need to have. Make halal easy, because haram is really, really easy today. Make it easy. Start talking to our kids about this. Start listening to them. Start preparing them psychologically, preparing them religiously, help them prepare socially and financially, because they are maturing physically 10, 15 years before this is happening. 10, 15 years, and that's not compatible with a functioning society. It really isn't. The last thing I'll talk about quickly, or I'll leave it for a different time, just understanding the rights and obligations within marriage. This is by far the question I get the most from people who are just getting, they're looking to get married, or they just katab kitabu, or they did khutbah and now they're engaged, and they start asking me, what does she owe me, or what does he owe me? And then I tell them and they stop talking to me completely. The moment they answer the question, that's it. I'm not the sheikh that they want to talk to. They look for someone else because the answer wasn't what they were looking for. Knowing what your rights are in marriage and what your obligations are. Understanding that it's very simple things that you're asked to do. Your obligations are understanding what the Prophet ﷺ gave you as a wasiyah, as a man or as a woman, and understanding what he expects of you, ﷺ, what the rights actually are. Very important information to have prior to getting into marriage. Again, before I move on, before we tell the beautiful story of the Prophet ﷺ's marriage, this is something that we need to start fixing. I don't know how. My daughter is only a year and 7 months old. So I think I have some time to worry about this. But many of you don't. And I'm watching it and looking at it every day, and it's only getting worse, and we're not achieving the right, we're not getting anywhere. We still have the standards that are unreasonable. We're still asking for something that can't be done, and our poor youth are completely lost, and they don't know what to think and how to understand things and how to look at marriage and how to go by it and what's okay and what's not okay. And we have to start talking about this a bit more openly and a bit more, bravely or courageously, I guess. Go move on to the one after, inshallah. So, these are the facts of his marriage, alayhi salatu wasalam. He was married to her 25 years, alayhi salatu wasalam. 25 years. They had 6 children together. 2 of those kids died while they were together, alayhi salatu wasalam wa radiyallahu anha. Losing 1 child in a marriage can almost destroy it. Losing 2, and they weren't lost at birth. They lived to be 4 or 5 or 6 years old. Al-Qasim and Abdullah, both of them male, at the time that hurt even more, because there was strength in it, from a trivial perspective. Losing 2 of their children, during their life, 25 years of marriage, you think, and then when you look at the actual fact, he continued to love her, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, 15 years after she passed away. He would continue to speak of her, alayhi salatu wasalam, to the point where Aisha would say, مَا غِرْتُ مِنْ أَحَدٍ مِنْ نِسَاءِ رَسُولِ اللَّهِ إِلَّا امْرَأَةً قَدْ وَرَاهَا التُّرَابِ قَبْلَ أَنْ أُولَدْ. The only person that I ever actually was jealous of all his wives was not the ones who were living during my time, was someone who had died before I even knew the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. كلما دخل علينا طعام يقول كانت خديجة وفعلت خديجة ترسل لصاحبات خديجة. Every time food came in, he would say, Khadija did this, Khadija used to cook it like this. I'm going to send some to the family of Khadija or the friends of Khadija. And Aisha would get upset, تقول والله لقد أبدلك الله خيرا منها. Why do you keep talking about her? تتحدث عن حمراء الشدقين قد وراها التراب. Talking about someone who wasn't very pretty and she's dead now, and you have a better wife than her. فسكت صلى الله عليه وسلم مغضبا, and he would silence. He'd go silence for a few moments, and she could see that she upset him. تقول فأعرف أني أغضبته, that I know that I upset him. فأسكت. فيقول لا والله ما أبدلني الله خيرا منها. No, I've never been with anyone better than her. ثم يقول عليه الصلاة والسلام أعطتني إذ حرمني الناس وصدقتني إذ كذبني الناس وآمنت بي إذ أدبر عني الناس وكان لي منها الولد. You don't know what she did for me. You don't know what she did for me in my life. She stood by me when no one else did. She believed in me when no one else did. She gave me her money when no one else did. I had children with her. You don't know what it was like. Once he was sitting alayhi salatu wasalam in the house, and he heard footsteps coming towards the door. Now, if you, as a child, you always knew who was walking in the house, especially if you're doing something wrong in your room. If I was doing something wrong in my room, I knew who was walking. I knew my mother's way of walking. I knew my dad's way of walking. But my mother, I would continue. With my dad, I would immediately, clean things up and sit up and act like I was studying. So you know, just based on the footsteps, you know who's kind of walking around. And if it was something new, someone different, you also knew that as well. So the Prophet ﷺ had memorized the way Khadija would walk. And then one of her siblings came by, and he heard someone walking coming towards the door. And he heard the footsteps of Khadija radiallahu anha. So alayhi salatu wasalam remembered her. And he said, فَقَالَ اللَّهُمَّ هَالَةً, oh Allah, make that Hala, meaning Khadija's sister. May that be Hala. Because it can't be Khadija. She passed away, but may it be her sister. فَطَرَقَ الْبَابِ فَفَتَحَ الْبَابِ It's Hala at the door. And Aisha gets even more upset. But that's what happened. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Once he stopped an army, alayhi salatu wasalam, and told them, take a break. He would go and he would sit maybe a kilometer away. They would follow him and find him sitting with 3 old ladies in their 70s. And he's sitting there and he was very happy, alayhi salatu wasalam, smiling and laughing. And when he's done, he sends them on their way. He comes back, so they ask him, ما كنت تصنع يا رسول الله? What were you doing? قال كنت أحدثهن عن الأيام الجميلة أيام خديجة. We were sitting and talking about the good old days, the days of Khadija. They were the friends of Khadija. They used to visit us during the days of Khadija. They remind me of the time of Khadija radiallahu anha. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. I can say this, and I wrote it, and I'm going to say it as well. I don't think things would have been the same without her radiallahu anha. I believe it's Allah's destiny that He sent to the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam Khadija to be there. I don't think he would have functioned the same way without her radiallahu anha. I think Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chose Khadija for him, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, to be there for him during his life, to play the role that no one else could have played. And we're going to see how intricate and important that role is as we go along in the Seerah. I need to take a break because I need to drink some water and take a break. We only have a few more minutes till the end of the halaqah. Just move forward if you don't mind to the point after this. We'll be talking about Khadija a lot as we go along. It's not something that ends with today's halaqah, obviously. But I wanted to take the opportunity to talk about marriage a little bit. This is a problem in our society. Don't be bothered by the fact that I keep on saying that, because that is the truth. And we need to fix this. I can't do this alone. I don't even know where to begin. I really don't. But if those of you who can think of how we can fix this, then start coming up with plans, champion this. Today I gave a khutbah and my point was in it that we need people to champion problems. You need to look into something that you find that is of interest for you. And then start figuring out how to fix it. Don't come and give me an idea, all right? I have an abundance of ideas from myself and from the community. There's a lot of ideas. Very few people who are willing to execute any of them. There are very few people who are willing to champion any of these ideas. We need people who will take time out of their lives and focus on a problem that needs to be solved and to start solving it, especially if it affects you. And this is something that is very pressing. And I feel it's going to come from the older generation, the grandfather generation, because they know more than anyone the reality and the truth of what marriage looks like and what needs to be. I'm going to give you a quick spoiler for next week, inshallah, before we end this. We're going to talk about a part of his life, alayhi salatu wasalam, that's going to focus on his humanity, alayhi salatu wasalam. Prior to being a prophet, this actual example, this story, is going to show you what type of person he was before he was a prophet, alayhi salatu wasalam. So you never question that ever again. Knowing that this is the type of person he was all his life, alayhi salatu wasalam. And the story is going to come in the form of the incident of Zaid ibn Haritha. Now, to give you a background, Zaid ibn Haritha was from a very known tribe in Arabia that lived in the northern parts of Arabia. And his mother and his aunts took the children out for a picnic one day, and they were raided by some of the hooligans of the land, some of the people who would take slaves, and they took a bunch of these children. Some of them were retrieved, most of them weren't. Amongst those who were not retrieved that day was Zaid. Zaid was only maybe 5 or 6 years old the day he was taken away from his mother and father, radiallahu anhu. Now, what I want you to think about until next week is, could you imagine a more horrible thing to happen to a child? As a father and a mother, that is your worst nightmare ever. The thing that will wake you up at night and give you shivers up your spine is imagining that, la samahallah, you lose a child of one of your children. Now, Zaid was taken away from his parents, and he was turned into a slave, and he was sold in the slave market. And somehow he was sold to a man by the name of Abdullah ibn Jad'an, who later gave him as a gift to a man by the name of Hakim ibn Hizam ibn Who knows? Ibn who? Ibn Khuwaylid, right? Now you understand. Hakim ibn Hizam ibn Khuwaylid, who was the nephew of Khadija, who when she got married decided he wanted to give her a gift, so he gave her this young boy who was 7 or 8 years old. Khadija, in return, when she was given Zaid, she gave him as a gift to whom? To Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Right? So this is what's happening to Zaid in his lifetime. And he would grow up with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam for the next number of years. His father will never stop looking for him. His mother would never stop looking for him. His father would say poetry that would make it as far as the land was wide. And I put up for those who بكيت على زيد ولم أدري ما فعل أحي فيرجى أم حل دونه الأجل فوالله ما أدري وإني لسائل أغالك بعد السهل أم غالك الجبل. He starts saying, I cry for Zayd and I don't know what happened to him. Is he alive or has he passed away? I say these words and I'm asking the question, are you in which mountain are you, Ya Zayd, or in which valley are you, Ya Zayd? And he goes on to say some very, very moving poetry that became famous because it was so sentimental and emotional. Of course, people don't know. And the destiny was that his father would find out somehow that Zayd was in Mecca. And he lived with a man by the name of Muhammad. And he was one of the grandchildren of Abdul Muttalib. Now his father, Al-Harith or Haritha, immediately said to himself, well, if he's a grandchild of Abdul Muttalib, that means he must be an excellent person. We have a good chance of getting this kid back. So he gathered as much money as he possibly could. And he went down to Mecca from the northern parts of Arabia, with the intention and the hope that inshallah he can retrieve his son back from the Prophet ﷺ. What happens, I will tell you inshallah next week. I will be here next week and we'll continue inshallah next week. Subhanakallah bihamdik. Shadu la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk.